Another rough start by Kodai Senga and a comeback that came up just a little bit short. The New York Mets let one get away on Wednesday night.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I'm covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. Want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip or two at any golf tournament in the U.S. by visiting the number 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament and ends October 31st, 2025. So I went into this series with the Mets playing the Nationals, and I described it as a must-sweep series. Well, there is a reason why you probably should never do that, because the reality is, unless you're mathematically eliminated, it's not a must-win series or a must-sweep series until the math starts mathing, where you will be actually eliminated if you don't win these games. But I still believe in the premise of what I was saying at the beginning of this week, which is just that this is a Mets team that is significantly better, or should be significantly better, than the Washington Nationals. And this is the worst team you're going to face for the rest of the season. You had 6 games against them. You didn't want to let any of them slip away. And that's exactly what happened on Wednesday. The New York Mets let a game slip away that they should have had. And part of it was Kodai Senga not having a good start. And part of it was a lineup that was held early, but came alive in the middle of that game and just could not finish off what was, nearly a valiant comeback attempt, but they could not get those final runs across against the Nationals bullpen. That's horrible. And so it's just a wasted opportunity for the Mets. But it does start with Kodai Senga, who looked good early, retired the first 6 batters that he faced. Third inning, he runs into some real troubles, issues a leadoff walk, and that was after getting ahead 0-2, and he just couldn't put Dylan Cruz away. A common theme for him in the middle innings in this game, where he just would get ahead sometimes and could not find that put-away pitch. Then the second runner gets on as Dylan Cruz is trying to steal second. Luis Torrens trying to get in position to throw the runner out, and instead he has his glove taken clean off with a swing, and it's a catcher's interference. So all of a sudden you got runners at first and second, nobody out. There's a soft ground ball hit to Pete Alonso, but hit too softly to turn 2. He then walks another batter to load the bases. C.J. Abrams comes up, hits a ground ball in the infield, but it was a softly hit ground ball where Pete Alonso pretty much just didn't have a play anywhere. Kodai Senga did not get over to first base quick enough. Abrams flies down the line. There really was no play at second. There was no play at the plate. The best chance was at first, but again, Senga just got beat to the bag by Abrams, who was booking it right off on contact, and Senga got a little bit of a delayed start, and I'm sure he's still not really feeling great about sprinting over to first base, and honestly, I don't necessarily want him to. Most of the time, I would just say, you know what, let the guy take the first base if Senga's pitching up to his level, and then let him navigate his way around it. But in this instance, obviously that was a big play in the game, kept the bases loaded. You then had a sacrifice fly that put a second run in before Senga was able to get another ground out to get out of the jam. But really, in that first inning where he gives up runs, a lot of traffic. Obviously, the walks weren't great, but he gives up 2 runs without a base hit leaving the infield. The sacrifice fly was the first ball that left the infield in that inning. So he didn't get rocked in the third. In the fourth, he got rocked a little bit. He, again, as I was talking about before, he got ahead of batters, couldn't put him away, was up 0-2 on Paul DeYoung, and just hung a sweeper that he was able to rip for a double. He then, got a strikeout, but Dylan Cruz comes up. He's ahead 0-1, and he throws a ghost fork that just does not have any break to it. It just hung up there in the zone, right down the middle, honestly. And Cruz able to rip one into the left field corner for another double. He then hangs another sweeper, this one in an 0-1 count to, was it Dave Milas? who ends up ripping one into the right field corner for a triple. And then he was finally able to get out of the jam. It did strand that runner at third, but the damage was done. It was 4-0 Nationals after those 2 innings. Brett Baty got the Mets closer, hit a solo homer on the top of the 5th inning, an absolute mammoth blast that went over 450 feet, his 15th homer of the season. Baty continued to play well, but in the bottom half, Senga serves up a home run of his own, a cutter that got way too much play for Josh Bell, who put it out to erase Baty's home run, made it 5-1. Now, the Mets did rally back in the 6th inning. You had Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto each take walks. Starling Marte, who entered the game for Brandon Nimmo, who left with a neck injury that we'll talk about in the final segment today. Marte struck out. Pete Alonso ripped an RBI double to score 1. Jeff McNeil somehow kept one fair down the left field line. Just vintage Jeff McNeil. Low line drive that somehow drops in fair and ends up being an RBI double that scores 2 more. All of a sudden, it's a 1-run game. And the Mets catch a break after that as Mark Vientos reaches on an error. Then Brett Baty draws a walk. So you got bases loaded. You're trailing by 1. Cedric Mullins comes up. Fortunately, in a game where he did actually get 2 hits, in his most important at bat, he came up short. It's a shallow fly ball that just was nowhere near deep enough to even consider sending Jeff McNeil home to try to score on the play. And the Mets miss a big opportunity there, because if Mullins is able to drive that baseball into deep right field and just get that sac fly, I think the Mets probably win this game in extra innings, if nothing else. But instead, you end up coming up a run short. Luis Torrens still had a chance, but he grounds out the strand 3 runners. Kodai Senga faces 1 in the 6th, gives up a leadoff single. Tyler Rogers comes in relief, gets a double play ball pretty much immediately. Then another ground ball to get out of the jam, or not even out of the jam, but out of the inning. Gregory Soto and Reed Garrett each put up scoreless frames, but the Mets just couldn't do anything offensively over those last couple of innings. In the 9th inning, they had their 1 hit of those final 3 frames, and it was Cedric Mullins who got a 1-out single in the 9th. Luis Torrens is up and is sitting in a 2-0 count. Why there was not a take sign delivered to Torrens in that moment is absolutely beyond me. You have a red-hot Francisco Lindor on deck. Red hot. Honestly, Torrens should have stood in the batter's box without a bat. I would have sent him up there with the sword from bench warmers and just have him just stand there and hope that he gets hit by a pitch. Just don't let him swing the bat, because anytime Luis Torrens makes contact, it's on the ground. I mean, this is not an accurate stat, but the eye test would tell you that his ground ball rate is 99.9%. Every single time, especially in this game, I think he did ground out 4 times. I think he was 0 for 4 with 4 ground outs. Let me check my math on that and see if I'm right. So he was 0 for 4. I'm not seeing any strikeouts. I would assume it was all ground outs. So let's check it out. 3rd inning, ground out to the first baseman. Okay, comes up again in 5th inning. Remember, we just mentioned that. That wasn't even the bases loaded at bat. That was another at bat where Cedric Mullins had gotten a 2-out hit, and he grounded out to strand the runner. That one was a hard hit ground ball, diving stop by Josh Bell, but still on the ground. Then you had the 6th inning, as I mentioned, strands the bases loaded with a ground out, and then you had the final at bat where he grounds out. Now, in the 6th inning, that ground out was hit very hard, 110 miles per hour off the bat, but on the ground, so Luis Garcia was able to make a good play, the second baseman, to get them out of that jam. And then again, end of the game, hits one on the ground. This one not even hard, but can't beat out the double play, and that's how the ball game ends. It just can't end on a double play ball if Luis Torrens up. Now, the problem is, and we'll talk about it more in the final segment today, the Mets just are really struggling against left-handed pitching, and so they don't have a good option on their bench. Tyrone Taylor's been brutal this year against left-handed pitching. I mean, brutal in general, but particularly against lefties. Ryan Mauricio, he's got a 0.88 batting average against left-handed pitching. There wasn't really any good options. Certainly you weren't going to pitch it Hayden Sanger, but what you should have done is had Luis Torrens take until he had 2 strikes on him. That's what I would have done, honestly, especially when he starts off in a 2-0 count, because he swung at a pitch that was in the other batter's box too. It wasn't a strike. Could have been 3-0. Could have drawn a walk, and then Lindor comes up with a runner in scoring position, the tying run, in scoring position, the winning run on first base, and a chance where if he rips a double, all of a sudden you might win that game. So brutal at bat by Torrens, and just a comeback that came up a little bit short for the Mets. But what I want to talk about in the next segment is I want to spend some more time on Kodai Senga. Can the Mets count on him again this season? And is he becoming a problem to be the ace you're building around when there's just too much injury inconsistency and he has to start on 5 days rest? Is Senga more of a detriment than a boost to this team moving forward? I'll talk about it all here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes so you can see clear data visuals and get smart categorization of your spending and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately started to spot some subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those alone saved me money every month. Don't let that financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I would love to get there by the end of the season. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Now, Kodai Senga has had a very interesting season because we forget that the reason the Mets had the best record in baseball, or one of the reasons the Mets had the best record in baseball early this year, is because Kodai Senga was mounting a Cy Young case. When he went on the injury list, he had a 1.47 ERA. But another year with a lower leg injury, he comes back earlier than I think a lot of us expected. When Senga went down in the middle of June, I think a lot of us sort of wrote him off until after the trade deadline, but he came back right before the All-Star break, actually had a good start in his first appearance off of the IL, 4 scoreless innings. Thought, okay, Senga just picking up right where he left off. I'll have to get stretched out a little bit more, but he's going to be fine. Since then, across his last 6 starts, 4 of them have been bad starts. He's had a couple of good ones mixed in, but largely he has struggled. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's wrong because it's different on each given start. For tonight, he couldn't put batters away. There's been other nights where, he's just nowhere near the strike zone. And in some respects, it's the same problem. It's not having the command of your pitches locked in, and that's not just command in zone. That's being able to have that command just out of the zone to get the swing and miss that you need. And so it's been an issue for Senga to just have those mechanics locked into place and to be in that rhythm that we saw him in early this season, where again, he was, when it comes to run prevention, the most effective starting pitcher in baseball at the time. But now he can't find his way. And it's unfortunate because his last start, I thought he was getting there. Goes 5 2/3, strikes out 7, only gives up 2 runs. Seemed like he was starting to turn a corner. And now another bad start, and all the same questions reemerge on Kodai Senga. Is he going to be able to figure it out this year? The one thing I will say is early in this game, his stuff looked good. 3rd inning, couple of things really didn't go his way. Obviously, the walks were the big killer, but the catcher's interference didn't help. The ground ball that just was placed perfectly, a weakly hit ground ball. That's not a mistake on execution. That's just the Nationals were able to catch a break with a speedy runner and a ground ball that was sort of hitting no man's land in the infield. And so if that inning goes a different way and Senga doesn't give up any runs and he works around an inning where he got hit very hard in the 4th and only gave up 2 runs, well, now we're talking about 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. It's not even as terrible of a start as it gets made out to be. I'm not going to sit here and just try to defend everything on Kodai Senga, but I just so frequently see this guy getting ripped, and maybe it's just a select few of the listeners of this show who are loud in the comment section on YouTube or on social media. I know I've had a couple of our Locked On Mets insiders in our texting service that I've gone back and forth with a couple of times about Kodai Senga that just don't appreciate what he brings to the table and think that he is more of a detriment than a help to your rotation because he can only start on 5 days rest and because he has these injuries. What I want to remind everyone, though, is despite all of the recent struggles, he's sitting with a 2.58 ERA through 20 starts and over 100 innings pitched. There's not a lot of guys in Major League Baseball who will give you 100 innings pitched at a 2.58 ERA. Now, that ERA was a 1.47 when he went on the IL. So obviously lately it hasn't been good. It's been an ERA over 5 since he's come off the IL. And that's clearly an issue that has to be rectified. But I just too often see people destroying Kodai Senga when things aren't going well. And then it feels like he maybe doesn't get enough praise when things are going well. This season, the Mets are 13-7 when Kodai Senga starts a game for them. It's pretty good. I mean, what are they this season overall? How many games over 500 are they right now? Is it 7? They're 8 games over 500, and there's 6 games over 500 with Senga on the hill. And some of those losses were not even on him, honestly, early in the season. The most recent ones, yeah, definitely can be attributed to Senga, but I just think that this guy has gotten to a point where some of the little frustrations have been blown up. And it's not to say that I think that you should blindly have faith that Kodai Senga is going to give you 32 starts, which will probably never happen, and be an ace that can carry your team. But for $15 million a season, and he's not going to be able to opt out of that contract, so you still have him at the number for 2 more years, you'd be hard-pressed to find a guy that has a higher ceiling at $15 million per. The Mets are going to be paying Frankie Montas more money next year than Kodai Senga, and they did this year as well. So I have to stop short of criticizing this guy to the point of saying that he's a detriment to the team, as I've seen some people say, or that you can't win with him in your rotation. The Mets, did plenty of winning with Kodai Senga as their ace earlier this season. Unfortunately, he got injured, and that got him out of his rhythm, and we'll see if he finds it. But I still watch Kodai Senga pitch, and yes, an inning like the 4th inning, you can see that he's not all the way right. But early in that game, I thought he looked really good, and then it just sort of went away, and he lost it. But I would still, not be surprised at all if we look up in a couple of starts and Kodai Senga is back to being the ace that you need down the stretch. It's just you start to run out of time. He might only have 6 more turns in this rotation before the end of the season. So if he can't right the ship in one of his next couple starts, you might be getting to a point where these bad starts and this lack of consistency from Kodai Senga really does cost you in the long run. The other thing that was interesting about Kodai Senga today is he was asked by the media about starting on regular rest, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm good to start on regular rest." Basically, that's essentially what they said. I think his answer was simply, they said, you're going to be able to start on 4 days rest your next time out, and he said that's regular rest. I'll be fine. Now, Kodai Senga started on regular rest 3 times in 2023, gave up 7 runs in 13 and 2/3 innings pitched, had a 4.61 ERA. His other 26 starts that year, when he got 5 or more days of rest, his ERA was well under 3. So it's clear that this is a guy that would prefer to get that extra rest, and I'm just not buying that the Mets aren't going to give it to him. Now, we'll see. Maybe they do decide to go with Senga on regular rest, and we don't see Brandon Sproat on Monday like I predicted on, I guess it was Tuesday's show where I said if Brandon Sproat starts tonight in Syracuse, he's going to be starting on Monday. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. If they go with Brandon Sproat and I'm right, or if I'm wrong and they're actually going to go to Kodai Senga on regular rest. But if they are, to me, that just goes back to the roster crunch issue and not being willing to option Reed Garrett or DFA Ryan Stanek or DFA Frankie Montas for that matter too, because that still is theoretically something the Mets could do, even though I don't imagine they would when he still has that option for next season. And then he just becomes $17 million of dead money on your books. But if they really decide to go with Senga on regular rest, I don't think that is a better solution than Brandon Sproat on 5 days rest. And then you're going to run into the same issue the next turn through, because again, you are going to need, with 16 games in 16 days, there's no scheduled off days to get Senga's extra rest. So he's going to have to pitch again on regular rest. And Nolan McLean, who's after Sean Manaea in their rotation, he'd have to go on regular rest too, something he's done once in his professional career. So I'm still not buying it. I still think that we're going to see Brandon Sproat make a start and be part of the rotation. They'll have to figure out what they're going to do with the roster. But I still think that's the way they ultimately end up going. And honestly, the more that you think about it, if they are just this dead set against getting rid of Ryan Stanek because of the upside he can offer in October, and they don't want to put Reed Garrett down because he's too important to the bullpen, or maybe they feel like he doesn't deserve to get option, whatever it is. If that's the case, don't just keep running out there lesser options and put your team in a worse position when you're holding on to a game lead in the wild card. It does not make sense to continue to go down that well just because you're beholden to Ryan Stanek or because you're beholden to Frankie Montas. Worst case scenario, just cut Montas and say whatever to that money next year. I know it's not a smart thing to do from a financial perspective, but it's Steve Cohen's team, and you're making a push to the playoffs. And if that's the roster spot that you need to put your best 26 out there to make sure that you get the most out of your team and you're not putting all these guys in worse spots, because I think if you start Kodai Senga on Monday, he's not going to be in as good of a position to succeed. Neither is Manaea, neither is McLean. So you're getting maybe three lesser versions of some of your better pitchers in that series against Philly, and that'll bleed into the next couple series. So I just don't think that it makes sense to do that. Then again, though, if you are the Kodai Senga skeptic out there, you are telling me that's exactly why you can't build around Kodai Senga and why he's the problem. But I'm telling you, I think all these guys benefit from the extra rest. I think Manaea right now benefits from the extra rest. I think McLean would benefit from the extra rest. David Peterson this year, I believe, has pitched better on extra rest. All of these guys really pitch better on extra rest. It's one of those things where you wish Major League Baseball would just expand the roster. I know they don't want to expand the roster to the point where teams can get even deeper bullpens, and it's more of that. But if you could find a way to expand the roster by one extra slot and have it be designated for it has to be starting pitchers. You need to have, if you're going to carry 14 starting pitchers on your roster, 14 starting pitchers. If you're going to carry 14 pitchers on your roster, 6 of them have to be starting pitchers. If they could do that, I think you'd have less injury. I think you get better performance from a lot of guys across the league. And, for teams that want to roll with the traditional 5-man rotation because they think they're best that way, well, then you can carry an extra guy on your bench and you can try to have maybe an extra speedster on your bench and do something that way. But it's just one of those things in baseball now where all these guys pitch better on extra rest. And so if you have an opportunity to call up a top prospect that is going to be touching 100 miles per hour with the adrenaline he'd get in that game and could potentially just give you another mid-season boost the way you just got from Nolan McLean's promotion, I just don't think it makes sense to have Senga pitch on regular rest, but we'll see what the Mets decide to do. In the final segment, I want to touch on the injury to Brandon Nimmo, exited the game with a neck injury, so we'll go over that to close out the show. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up. With 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, this grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends, it's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best part of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit the number 5HEwin.com For full rules and entry, no purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament ends on October 31st, 2025. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways and a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, Brandon Nimmo is day-to-day with a neck injury, the same one that he was day-to-day with earlier this season, and one that'll pop up time and again throughout the rest of his career. Back in 2019, Nimmo crashed into a wall to make a catch, and he ended up trying to play through that neck injury early in the season, had a very rough go of it, hit the IL for a while, came back once he was fully healed. It had a great close to that 2019 season, and since then, he has been able to really work around the injury issues that plagued him early in his career and figure out a way to be pretty available for the New York Mets. But part of that is playing through some pain at times, and another part of that is knowing when to shut it down. And Brandon Nimmo probably knows his body better than anybody on the Mets. He has really adopted all of the sports science that goes into your workload and how your body is responding and recovering and all these things. He takes his body and caring for it so seriously. So when he says it's day-to-day and it typically is going to take about 48 hours, you can kind of go to the bank with that. So what that would mean is he's not going to play today, that's for sure. Not going to play on Friday. Maybe plays over the weekend. Who knows how his neck will respond, hopping on a bird and flying down to Atlanta. I'm sure a bad neck does not feel good on a flight, especially if it's within 24 hours of really feeling it. If it was mostly aggravated throughout the day on Wednesday and you're going to fly out Thursday night. But you'll just have to wait and see how he responds to it. Doesn't seem like he's going to need an IL stint. And speaking of an IL stint, before I forget about it, Jose Siri may be ready to return, or at least start a rehab assignment soon. He is finally back to doing baseball activities and things are going well. So you could see Jose Siri at some point in September. I would think if he comes back, you're looking at him just being the speedster. You could, if you wanted to, have Jose Siri take Tyrone Taylor's spot on a roster potentially, just because he might offer a little bit more defensively, which is hard to imagine because of how good Tyrone Taylor has been. But Jose Siri also a very good defensive center fielder. I think more than that, though, he just offers a little bit more on the base pass, and he can't be worse offensively. At the same time, they'd probably keep both with an expanded roster, and maybe you just wouldn't see Acuna come up. Maybe Acuna, who actually got hurt himself. We'll see what happens with him. He had a collision at first base, then had to exit the game on Wednesday. So we'll see if Acuna's all right. And I can't remember if I touched on the show, but Carson Bench is also on the AAA IL. I haven't seen anyone report what that injury is, but just getting all my injury news out there to you guys before I forget any of it. But again, with Siri, we'll wait and see if once he starts playing rehab games before we actually try to forecast what his role would be on the Mets. But I would imagine all this could mean is in September, maybe you see Siri instead of Acuna. Now, without Brandon Nimmo for the next couple of days, pretty simple what the Mets should do. Jeff McNeil should slide to left. Brett Beatty move over to second. And then you maybe get a little more playing time for Ronnie Mauricio. You still obviously will play Mark Vientos plenty. And I would prefer, if you're going to play Starling Marte, instead of putting Marte in left like they did for this game because he replaced Nimmo when he went down, I would have Marte DH because you don't want to run the risk of Marte getting hurt playing the outfield like he did last time he played a full game out there. And I would stick, again, McNeil in left, Vientos at third, and Beatty at second, with Marte DHing over having Marte in left, with Vientos DHing and having a better defensive infield. So I think that's what we'll see over the next couple of days. Either it is that lineup, or you might see again, it's Vientos at DH potentially with Mauricio at third and Beatty at second. But I'd imagine Jeff McNeil is going to start in left until Brandon Nimmo can get back on the field. And I don't think you should be too concerned here that this can be something longer. But if it is, I think that would still be the plan moving forward. There's really nothing else the Mets would do. It would just be a matter of a little more at bats being opened up for Mauricio. And I would hope they would still continue to, regardless of Nimmo or not. I just think right now, with some of the signs we've seen from Beatty and Vientos, those are still the two guys I would lean into more. But you could free up some time too for Mauricio, who's been rotting on the bench a little bit. Now, The game today, Shaman I versus Mackenzie Gore. Gore has an ERA over 8 across his last 6 starts and a whip over 1.8, which is walks and hits over innings pitched. He's giving up almost 2 base runners per inning. That's brutal. So you would think the Mets have a good shot today. The problem, this team is brutal against left-handed pitching. I looked up the numbers, and Jeff McNeil, pretty much the only guy who has hit lefties this year. He's hit 302 against lefties with an 847 OPS. Francisco Alvarez, 795 OPS, which is actually pretty solid. Pete Alonso hitting 211, has 8 home runs, OPS in the 700s. Everybody else basically is below 700. You have Soto hitting 224, Nimmo 236, Marte 255, Lindor 216, Vientos 226, Tyrone Taylor 173 average, and then Mauricio at 088. It's just a team that doesn't have a single lefty masher on it right now. Only way that gets better is if guys just play to the career norms. Pete Alonso, Mark Vientos, Starling Marte, these are all guys who should be able to do damage against left-handed pitching. Juan Soto obviously can hit anybody. So it's a problem that has to be fixed. If not, imagine you end up running into the Phillies in the playoffs because they can run out there nothing but left-handed starters and just completely demolish you if you can't figure this out. So that is a big thing the Mets have to iron out here is getting their bats going against lefties. Maybe an opportunity today against a struggling lefty and Mackenzie Gore to score a bunch of runs and start to get on track versus guys throwing from that side. And we'll see how Sean Manaea fares here. It'll be good to see him put together a complete start. David Peterson laid out a little bit of a blueprint. Those guys pitch very differently, but it seems like maybe, just maybe, this Nationals team is a little bit better against right-handed pitching than left, or maybe it's just a matter of Kodai Senga was leaving stuff over the heart of the plate. I'd have to really dive deeper into the numbers. I know that the hitters that you would fear the most in this Nationals lineup, if you're looking at James Wood, looking at CJ Abrams, they are left-handed batters that Sean and I can hopefully take care of, and the Mets can ideally win this series, because if they don't, it's just setting you up for a really bad road trip and potentially sliding out of the playoff race altogether before you square off against the Phillies next week. Because the Reds, they lost tonight, but they're playing the Diamondbacks over the weekend. Who knows? Who knows what they're going to end up doing in that series, but they're right on your heels. So you got to take advantage of a team like the Nationals. The Mets, hopefully, can finish this series off. Anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day, and for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game at the show that'll take you around all the action in Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts as well as league-wide experts that'll take you through all the action. Check out Locked On MLB Game on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.